It's fair to say that foldable phones had a tough start when they came on the scene in 2019. Samsung's own Galaxy Fold, for instance, suffered multiple delays, hardware faults, and a full-on PR disaster when it launched just 3 years ago. But here we are, one long pandemic later, and not only do we have a third iteration of the Galaxy Z Fold, it also seems to have taken priority over Samsung's Note series, which was actually missing from last year's roster. So instead of a Note 21, Samsung would like us to consider the first mainstream foldable smartphone, the Galaxy Z Fold 3. For those unfamiliar with the concept, the Foldable is about two key technologies, a flexible display and an underlying hinge, both of which are very fragile innovations. For the Fold 3, there is a new hinge design hidden away behind a black bar, and the frame is also supported by tougher new materials that Samsung has dubbed Armour Aluminium, which is said to be 10% stronger than previous models. Take that with a pinch of salt though, because it's by no means drop resistant. This is, and probably always will be, a fragile technology. The hinge connects together two slim handsets to make a rather thick smartphone with a 6.2-inch outer display, but when you open it up it has a tablet-like 7.6-inch inner display. Size-wise, Samsung has managed to shave off a millimetre compared to last year's model, as it now stands 158mm tall and 128mm wide when unfolded, but that is still far bigger than any traditional smartphone. The weight has also dropped to 271 grams, which makes it far easier to use on the move. However, there is still an awkwardness to having it unfolded for long periods of time, particularly if you're holding other objects like shopping bags or a drink. We found that we tended to use the smaller outer display a little bit more, but that also limited its use. It's fine for checking notifications or even watching content. With only a 67mm width to play with, the keyboard is rather squished, and it's really difficult to do any serious typing with average size thumbs. When you do get to that inner display, it's an absolute joy, the same 120Hz refresh rate that was found on the S21. Now this is an adaptive feature that switches to suit the content or app you're viewing in a bid to save battery life. In our tests, both internal and external screens scored high for sRGB gamma color coverage, with both matching the S21 and surpassing the Note 20, which was admittedly poor for a Samsung panel. These are crisp, vivid displays and neither has any issue in bright conditions, and that higher refresh rate makes social media scrolling smoother than Butterscotch Angel Delight. Now there's no Exynos chip in the Fold 3, instead it's got Qualcomm Snapdragon's 888 processor, which was found on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Like a number of mobile CPUs available today, it's been made with a 5nm process, which allows more power into a smaller space. As such, the Fold 3 is super fast. In Geekbench 5, it notched up single core scores just short of the OnePlus 9 Pro and the S21, and it was enough to be considered a decent competitor. Now, considering it has dual displays and software able to seamlessly switch between the two, the Fold 3 is technically fantastic. Performance is like for like on both displays, and that includes switching from one to the other while in an app, and also using multiple apps in split screen mode, or loads of tabs while browsing. If the argument for having a foldable phone is that you can do more with it, that's backed up here with the processing power. And the same is true for battery life. The Fold 3 has a 4400 mAh battery, and in our looped video test, the larger display lasted 18 hours and 32 minutes, which is about standard for a phone with 120Hz refresh rate. Unsurprisingly, the smaller 6.7-inch screen lasted almost 2 hours more, at 20 hours and 2 minutes. For comparison, both displays lasted longer than the OnePlus 9 Pro, but they were some way off the S21 Ultra's 22 hours and 32 minutes. Now it is worth noting that in day-to-day use, both hold up very well. No matter what we threw at it, the Fold 3 always had a little bit of juice left in it by the end of the day, and hardly ever needed a midday charge. There is, however, a 25-watt fast charger and wireless charging capabilities if you do run out of juice, although neither are particularly impressive. The 25-watt fast charger takes an hour and 20 minutes to go from 10% to full. Feature-wise, the Fold 3 has an abundance of work-centric applications, and its user interface is far simpler and smoother to operate than ever before, with greater multitasking functions and an improved split screen mode. You can now change the size of app windows and enable a static taskbar that has a similar function to a desktop PC. Sadly, the cameras on the Fold 3 are a little disappointing. It has just 3 12-megapixel rear lenses, one wide, one telephoto and one ultra-wide, and a rather wimpy selfie camera. Now, on paper those look poor because that paper will also say Samsung, and we've come to expect the very best from its flagships. None of the lenses offer anything special aside from optical image stabilization. The telephoto lens, for instance, just offers a 2x optical zoom, which feels a little bit paltry compared to the S21 and its 10x space zoom. Now, this is the most important facet Samsung will need to get right if the Fold series is to become a mainstream success. It's only when it comes to software that the Fold 3 is a little more fun. You can partially unfold the device so it sits flat on a surface and allows you to take photos without handling it, which also includes a live preview mode. It also comes with decent video capabilities that allow users to capture stabilized footage of up to 4K at 60 frames per second. Again, it's not groundbreaking, but it is quite good and its focus is sharp and quick. For all its qualities, there are still some conceptual issues with the Samsung Galaxy Fold that start to annoy over time. By the second week of use, for instance, the smaller screen and its squished controls becomes very tiresome. It's also a little bit difficult to unfold it back, particularly when you're in a rush. Now, the average person uses their phone an awful lot, so either the unfolding needs to get easier or that smaller display needs to get better. The low-spec camera is also off-putting, particularly when you consider that the S21 is almost £400 cheaper and that has the best combination of lenses and software that has ever been on a smartphone. That being said, there are better reasons to buy the Fold 3 than there ever were for its predecessors, such as a 120Hz refresh rate and its intuitive software. What's more, it's clear that the Fold is now a key part of the Samsung smartphone family, so we can presumably expect it to get even better. But for right now, we have a pretty worthy foldable at our fingertips.